Hey, I'm doing this quick recording here to give an overview of the upcoming class on combustion and retrograde, or retrograde and combustion, that I'm teaching October 8th and 9th that weekend. I'm focusing this on also the many people who have gotten the earlier class on retrograde, the retrograde course that I did before, and showing the differences and the advancement in this course here. This is the screenshot from the Retrograde Planets course from the members area for those who have it. This is the screenshot and 7.5 hours of videos, and this is actually the manual. And I'm going to actually even just go over it and show you everything that you get with that Retrograde Planets course that's already being offered as a bonus. Again, 7.5 hours, and I'm actually going to go over and show all the stuff that you get in this Retrograde Planets course. It's actually, as I've said before, probably the most comprehensive retrograde planets course that you've ever seen. But as you notice, there's nothing in here about the combustion. There's nothing in here about the detailed astronomy and all of that. And then I'm just going to go over the overview of what you get in the upcoming course. So let me just go over this and show you. As you can see, it's October 8th and 9th, and it's not just about retrograde, it's also about combustion, and they're sort of two aspects of the same coin, you might say. And you can see I have this little graphic here where you can see how the retrograde planet, the planet is very close to the Earth. It's closest to the Earth at that time, where the Earth is in between the sun and the planet. And it says here retrograde closer to the Earth. The indications are backing up, and it affects the Karaka and the planet as a house ruler, and it leads to sort of confusing actions. We're back and forth, back and forth. With a combust planet, it's actually furthest away from the Earth at that time, with the sun being in the middle. So the rays of that planet go through the sun and then get to the Earth. So the sun is like energizing it. Oh, by the way, and as you can see, retrograde planets are akin to Rahu in this way, that like the way Rahu kind of backs up and is sort of confusing. But the combust planet, furthest from the Earth, its indications get very energized. Rather than confused, they're quite energized, and rather than backing up, we tend to go really fast with it. We're sort of frustrated and touchy, and the energy is getting purified. There's even a quality of like embarrassment and frustration with it, and it's akin to Ketu. So again, notice these differences, and I brought the nodes in as a sort of marker to show the real difference, because they're very opposite. Again, one is being really focused and concentrated, very much the way Ketu is. That's the planet that's combust, very similar to the way Ketu has a sort of frustrated irritability about it. And then the other one is kind of retrograde, very similar to like the way Rahu makes things kind of confusing, like, what am I doing, this, that, where we question and we're not sure of what's going on. And again, so in the first course that I taught, in this course, it's just all about retrograde. And you can see here on this manual, I talk about every planet. I talked about the planets as karakas, like Mars, siblings, Mercury, others in general, discrimination. These are the planets as karakas. Jupiter, meaning, where we find, teachers, children, and a sense of meaning. Venus, lovers, beloveds, happiness, right? But then also, I go through each planet here this way with these, different slides. And again, I'm going to go over this, the material in this course. On the weekend, it'll probably be about 2 hours of the 10 hours. But since you have access to all of this already, you can just go over it as well and go over these indicators. One of the things about this retrograde planets course is, regardless of your ascendant, I talk about every planet for every ascendant. For example, Aries. Retrograde Mercury brings confusion on how to skillfully navigate life's problems and difficulties without making enemies. This is based on Mercury as ruling the 3rd and 6th house. Let's say, for example, you're a Cancer. Okay, retrograde Jupiter brings confusion with higher philosophies, a sense of meaning, and learning from life's struggles. Again, because Jupiter rules the gracious and high-minded part of the crab, but also the 9th house of hopes and dreams and 6th house of life's struggles. So what I do is for all of the 12 ascending signs, I talk about each retrograde planet for each one. So regardless of what your ascendant is, if you have a retrograde planet, I give you a very strong composite here of what that planet means for you. So this is in the retrograde planets course. And again, this is just the manual in the course where I have all these videos. You know, this video, 2 hours and 12 minutes, this is the one where I go over all of those things. But then there's also one where I talk about each one of the houses. So again, this is just retrograde planets going, or in each house. So again, the first house, when a retrograde planet is in the first house, it will affect the health and personal identity, etc. So each one of these, you would then take that ascendant, you would take what that planet rules for that ascendant and its retrograde motion, then you put it in this house. So it's a very deep kind of matrix through which you can understand all the retrograde planets. So again, this is just the part of the weekend course that you get as a bonus. As you can see, one of the bonuses is that course. I'd say 6-hour course. It's actually 7.5 hours. So you get that as a bonus course immediately. There's also a bonus course. It's a 2-hour lecture. As I'm recording this on September 22nd, I haven't done it yet. I'm doing it live on September 25th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. You can get this bonus course on the evolution of astronomy through Greece, India, and Persia in Europe. So the evolution of this astronomy, where you learn about these epicycles and the Ptolemaic theory and how we learned to understand this sacred astronomy and how retrograde and combustion was really at the heart of it all. So again, in the course, you're going to learn this retrograde in great depth. Part of it is even being given to you in a retrograde course already, which is already there for you when you register. The combustion in great depth. And again, we're going to talk a lot about this sort of thing, and particularly things such as the guilt and shame and stress and fear that often comes up, this sort of Ketu-like blind spot that we have with the combust planets. They're moving very fast, but there's also a kind of sensitivity to them, very specific type of sensitivity. For example, with Mercury, there's a sensitivity around our words and feeling embarrassed about our function of speech. We're afraid to speak up. Maybe that makes us a little irritated. With Venus, there can be, sort of touchy spot around our values and even sexuality, because Venus is the indicator of sexuality. Particularly for women, this is a big thing. And I'm going to get into all of this psychological sort of underpinnings. A lot of the time when you see combust Venus for a woman, they wind up having a lot of touchy spots in their relationships, and again, particularly around sexuality, pleasing the partner, feeling disrespected and unappreciated, and really having to work through that frustration of the combustion, because again, the combustion, the planet is passing through the rays of the sun, and the sun is purifying it before it delivers the energy to the earth. But the way it purifies it is by creating this frustration. It's burning off the worldly happiness, but it's not hurting the results. So the person will often get very good results, but they'll feel frustrated. Again, this is why it's sort of akin to Ketu. This is similar to the way Ketu tends to feel. There's even one of the avashtas, it's called a Diptadi avashta, that's related to combustion, which is called Kopa, or angry and frustrated. So combustion is a big thing that's not talked about in great depth, and we're going to do it here. There's going to be a lot of case studies. We're going to talk about the astronomy behind it all, and as I say, the deeper psychology behind retrograde and combustion, because again, these are very psychological things. Combust Jupiter, for example, and it can lead to things like atheism and a kind of flashpoint. This is what combustion is, really indicating, a kind of Ketu-like or sort of flashpoint around that thing. Don't try to tell me to believe. Oh, I'm believing in myself. So again, it's passing through the sun, so that Jupiter would be very energized by it, but at the same time, kind of frustrated around being taught about it. As I say here, that the retrograde keeps us stuck in these confusing cycles, which is Rahu-like over and over, like addictions, even in our career, relationships. Combustion brings up flashpoints of aggravation, shame, hidden patterns and behaviors, Ketu-like, and embarrassment, like we try to hide this thing, but then it comes out, it like erupts. And also the gender nature of the planets are also revealed and confused, which is retrograde, or purified, which is combustion. The difference between analyzing these things in a natal chart and in the sky, both personal and cultural. So for example, usually every year or so, Mars winds up being combust for several months at a time, right? Um, Jupiter can be combust for a long time as well, Saturn. So this combustion is not something that is really talked about and understood as much as it should be. And by the way, I have a lot of advanced students when I when I meet with them and I get them to explain things like the retrograde and the combustion, they often, again, their understanding isn't as good as it could be, that's for sure. And I mean explaining it and really understanding the psychology behind it. So when you do register, you get that very in-depth bonus class on these retrograde, and you get this, again, it's 7.5 hours of classes. This is a screenshot from it, and this manual that's very detailed about every ascendant, every retrograde planet for every ascendant. That's just a bonus class that you get. But again, I don't want people to think, oh, I got that retrograde course before. This is a whole other thing. This might be about 2 hours of the 10 hours of the weekend course. Okay. We're going to take this and expand upon it greatly. And again, I taught this in 2012, so it was literally 10 years ago. So not only has my knowledge about retrograde grown, but we're bringing in all this other stuff as well, all this astronomy, and then there's also the very valuable follow-up Q&A class that happens the next weekend. So again, you can register for that. The current price, as we introduce it here, is only $47. And again, after that, it goes up to the regular price of $97. And so again, I have this overview graphic, retrograde and combust, with this 80-20 focus, right? Which means the 20% of information gives you 80% of the result, right? So it's very concentrated. Again, I've been doing this for decades, and I really condense that into very succinct concepts that you can use, showing these common sense, concepts, and the astronomy and the rationale behind it really has it make sense. For example, the retrograde planet is slow or backwards. The combust planet is very fast and fiery. So again, understanding this really brings the indicators. And again, how to balance these things with other factors, which includes things like the natural indicator of the planet, also the functional nature, like what the planet rules. It's very different if it's a functional malefic or if it's a functional benefic. We're going to talk about those things. Nuts and bolts, basic methods, calculating and reading the charts, these charts for special skills, like how to really see, oh yeah, that's combust, that's retrograde. It's going to really show these special factors and skills that really come through. And of course, sacred timing and karma, examining the timing of the effects of the retrograde and the combust planets when they show up in your life. Spiritual implications, special spiritual lessons here are big. Retrograde planets closer to the earth, they reflect, they back up in our consciousness. This is one of the main things about retrograde, is the things that get disrupted externally are to make the thing very bright internally. Because even when you look up in the sky, again, everything starts with the observation. The retrograde planet is closest to the earth. That means it's very bright in the sky. You look up in the sky and you're like, it makes you stop. It literally kind of makes you stop, just like the planet has stopped. And that makes you ponder and reflect on that thing, right? The combust planet is invisible. You can't even see it because it's behind the sun. It's literally called lost in the rays. You can't even see it. So again, there's enormous spiritual implication here. And it's lost in the sun, but that's because the sun is now energizing it. It's also a certification week, and so the subject is so important that I'm certifying students to do it afterward, after you pass the test. I'm getting the exam together now. And again, super hot here, you learn to do retrograde and combust readings. So all the students that I have that have gone through my certification courses, frankly, all of you should get this, because none of you are really explaining retrograde so well to where people are like, oh yeah, okay. Are you bringing in specifically how it interrupts? Are you talking about specifically the house rulers? Are you seeing that and really reading that accurately and correctly? What about combustion? Do you really understand what it's doing? Do you know how to delineate these differences? Do you know what's getting energized with one and not energized with another? Maybe you do. I haven't heard a lot of great explanations. So again, if you're trying to do readings or you're trying to do this, this is great for you, and you're going to learn how to just do a reading on these factors. So I'm going to teach people how to do like just a retrograde and a combust reading, um, just on those factors, and to really drill down into helping people with that. It's perfect for serious students. So again, I invite people to get this. It's a very rare opportunity to learn this in great detail. And I just wanted to make this quick video for a couple reasons, to delineate a few of these things, to show you that it's very different than the retrograde course that you've gotten before, even though this is the most comprehensive retrograde course I've ever seen. Again, every planet for every ascendant analyzed as a house ruler, every planet in every house in the chart retrograde as well. So again, you bring these things together and it's an incredibly powerful template just with the retrograde part. This course is going to be taking that and exploding it even more, and frankly, it's only $47. And by the way, yes, I did also have the 30-day money back guarantee to anyone who doesn't, if you really don't think at the end that it was worth it, I'll give you your money back, okay? But I doubt that'll be the case. Anyway, go ahead and register for this, and I'd love to have you on that. And if you're seeing this before September 25th, when I'm doing this bonus class, then you'll get to attend that also in real time.